YouTube Buzzik, and the Godows is back. We're about halfway through the NFL season, and today I got some bold predictions for the second half of the season into the playoffs even further. I got 5 myself that I feel pretty good about here, but after that, we're going to go over quite a few more that are from some diehard NFL fans that also follow us on Twitter. So excited to break all these down, see if they come true here in the second half of the season, into the playoffs, onto the Super Bowl, things like that. So, we have full NFL coverage here, so join us. Recent trade deadline videos, weekly picks, score predictions, power rankings, a lot more. So, like, subscribe, turn notifications on, join us, follow us on Twitter, link pinned in the comments for that. GLD Shop, our sponsor, Liquid IV, our sponsor, code GOAT on both those sites. I'm rocking the Eagles GLD Shop chain here. Some sick stuff. Links pinned in the comments. My first bold predictions: the Cleveland Browns make the playoffs, and they won't even be the 7 seed. So a little bit of spicy of a take because they're 3-5 right now. They are coming off a pretty good win against Cincinnati Bengals. So they got that going for them. That was good. But I think most people, if they would kind of predict the playoffs right now, they would keep the Browns out. But again, Deshaun Watson is coming back in a few weeks. Right now, they're putting up fights with teams. So maybe they're playing a little better than expected. They do have to close out some of these games, but kind of looking at their schedule, it's tough the next few games. I'm looking at it over on my side in case you haven't figured that out. But Dolphins, Bills, Bucks. It's going to be tough against the Dolphins and the Bills. The Bucks is definitely a winnable game. Then Deshaun Watson comes back, and you got Texans. You got Bengals, who the Browns just proved they are a brutal matchup for the Bengals to deal with. And then you got Ravens, Saints. 2 good teams, but winnable games for sure with Deshaun Watson. Commanders, Steelers, same situation. They're going to win a lot of games with Deshaun Watson. It's definitely going to depend on which Watson it is. Sure, he could knock off some rust. Luckily, they play the Texans for him to knock off that rust in a revenge game. That's, I think, good for the Browns. And they might be able to pull off an upset against the Dolphins, Bills beforehand. Maybe not, but the Bucks probably could. And then look at the AFC. If you actually look at the bottom part of that AFC, like who's going to be that 6 and 7 seed, I think it's a battle between a bunch of teams that might win, possibly 8 games, 9. Probably 9, though. You look at some of those teams, like the Bengals, like the Chargers, teams that are a little inconsistent right now and have a tough schedule. So I was kind of looking through it, and I thought the Browns could actually not only make the playoffs, but make it as a 6 seed. So, and I think it's possible they make it as a 7. I think it's possible they miss the playoffs, but that'll be my bold prediction that, they really get going when Deshaun Watson comes back. They can win most of those games. And when I say most, I mean almost all of them. They might be favorites in all of those games. Texans, Bengals, Ravens, Saints, Commanders, Steelers. And don't think about the Browns right now. Think about them with Deshaun Watson. Texans favored. Bengals, they just proved they were a nightmare of a matchup for the Bengals just last week. And now with Deshaun Watson, the Browns might be the favorites. Ravens, it's in Cleveland. Either way, Saints, it's in Cleveland. I think the Browns will be the favorites. Commanders, Steelers, and the Browns will be the favorites in those games. So they almost can win all of those games. Maybe all of them, So feeling pretty good about their chances as long as they don't absolutely blow it in the meantime. They got to win one of these next 3. So that would be 4 and 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They're probably not going to win every single one of those. So they could win around 9 games and get that 6 or 7 seed. The bottom part of the playoffs, or the teams contending for the playoffs, are actually struggling right now for the AFC. We thought that'd be NFC. It's more of the AFC, actually. Even maybe there's more powerhouses at the top of the AFC. You could argue that, I suppose. My next one here, 49ers, who are currently 4-4, 500 exactly, go to the Super Bowl. So maybe that's not. There's probably some people out there that think the 49ers can do it, but sitting at 4-4 and what the Eagles are doing, the Eagles are the best team in football right now, hands down. Will that continue? It very well could. But just a feeling I get with the Niners, the playoffs a whole different ball game. We definitely saw that last year. Some new teams entering. Are you feeling good about these teams finally getting over the hump, finally getting over those teams they can't beat in the playoffs? And no, they can't do it. None of them did it, So different game in the playoffs. Teams with that experience, the winning experience, that comes up big, obviously. So the Niners have that experience, and they have, in their experience, they come up just short, but this could be the time, maybe they get over that hump, which is pretty far down there, so they're kind of used to winning those big games. They won't have nerves, they won't choke under pressure. And it's a very talented team if healthy. That's the key. Will they be healthy? If the 49ers are out there healthy, to me, they're the best team in the NFC if we're talking playoffs, at that time. But that is the big question. Will they be healthy? But right now, I get the feeling that, because they got guys beat up right now, but there's really nothing major. It's kind of those injuries you see at this time of the year. There's a lot of them, though, but they're getting guys back right now, so maybe they're just kind of getting that out of the way now. Nothing major here, knock on wood. This is wood right here. We're knocking on it. So I think this could be the year they finally get to the. I mean, they got to the Super Bowl a few years ago against the Chiefs, but this could be that year where they. This could be the year. Really, is what I'm saying. This could be the year they finally do it. So, pretty bold since they're sitting at 4-4 right now. The kind of looking at other teams, the Eagles are the best team right now, and they very well could go to the Super Bowl. That wouldn't be too bold to predict that right now, the way they're sitting, which is pretty right now. And the Cowboys got a shot. They look really good this year. Look like the best defense in football. And the 49ers could have the best defense if healthy, but the Cowboys, and they got Dak back. They're rolling on offense right now. I really look at those teams, Eagles, Niners, Cowboys. The Vikings are playing really good football right now, and they just got better with TJ Hawkinson. They have a very solid offense, and sure, they can do it. I'm a Vikings fan myself. It's a little tough for even me, even though I'm excited. I love what I'm seeing right now, mainly offensively, but from the new coaching staff, but the thought of, between the Niners, Eagles, Cowboys, we're likely to have to get through two of those teams to get to the Super Bowl. I don't know. Just something says I don't know if they can do it. This year, maybe not yet. Maybe like next year. But so I'd probably put them after in terms of, and again, regular season playoffs, different story. I don't really care about the records right now. Looking at those other teams at the top there. But Niners have healthy, the team I'm watching. Next, Bucks finish under 500, which. Is that super bold? Because they're sitting at, I want to see the rest of their schedule as well. I was looking through it already. That's right. But they're sitting under 500 right now. So maybe it's not super bold, but I think everyone's like, yeah, they'll figure it out. It's Tom Brady. They're too talented. They got to figure it out. And I definitely understand that logic as well. Like, they definitely could figure it out. I can see them winning the NFC South. But looking at the schedule, it's pretty damn tough. And, it starts this week against the Rams. I picked the Rams this week, so we'll see what happens in that game. It's kind of a 50-50 game. They got the Seahawks coming up, which are a lot tougher than expected. They have a really tough schedule coming up. Maybe they figure something out, but they realistically could finish under 500. It's crazy to think about, even though they're under 500 right now. But that's kind of looking at their schedule. That's kind of my feeling, even though I do think it's bold, and I'm not guaranteeing anything with these bold predictions. Speaking of the NFC South, the Saints win the NFC South. They're currently third, under 500. They got a big game on Monday Night Football this week against the Ravens. I picked the Saints to win that. It's a 50-51 for me. So it's a good starting point if they can pull that off. But the Saints, I'm just looking at the NFC South, and the Bucs have Tom Brady. They have a lot of talent. They sure if they could figure it out, could see that. I don't love the rest of their schedule. And they play the Saints again, and they beat them last time, but they have a tough time with the Saints in general, so that'll be a massive game, which I'm kind of siding towards the Saints right now. Look at the Falcons, who are leading it right now, a tough team. They have a somewhat favorable schedule as well, so I can definitely see the Falcons. We'll talk about the Falcons in a little bit. But the team, I feel, looking at the situation, what's going on with the team, how they are currently playing today, what's going on, the situation the rest of the year. Let's look at the schedule the rest of the year. The team I feel the most comfortable with is the New Orleans Saints. Because even in losses this year, if you kind of realize it now, kind of going back, even in losses, they kind of looked pretty solid. Maybe the defense is pretty underwhelming in those games, or maybe there was a couple just very unfortunate turnovers. The Cardinals game, 2 pick sixes. Like, obviously those things can't happen, but they put up fights in those games. They actually are pretty explosive on offense. Looking at that last game against the Raiders, the defense finally came alive. Could that continue? Just one game, could it continue? But probably the team I feel the most comfortable about, I think the Bucs would be the next most talented team right now. They should be the most talented, but Shaq Barrett hurt. The offensive line's obviously beat up. Secondary's beat up right now as well, so I factored that in. Saints should be getting guys back as we go along here, minus Michael Thomas. Obviously, unfortunately, he's out for the year, but yeah, so, and then you look at the Falcons, who they have a solid schedule. They're winning right now, so I could see that being the pick. I just feel like these other two teams have a better roster. The talent's there a little bit more, so I go with the Saints here in my bold prediction. And then a bold prediction signing, Cowboys sign Odell Beckham Jr. is what I'm going to go with. I think the obvious choices right now, which I've been saying the Rams for a while, but if the Rams, and it very well could be the Rams, if they struggle still, it's gonna really depend on if they're winning or losing. And it's a big game against the Bucs this week. They can go either way. So, and there's gonna be a couple more games that will decide. So it's not gonna be just that game, but. If they're kind of 500, he might just choose a team that's winning. A lot of people say the Bills, very, very tight on cap space right now. They made a move for Nyheim Hines. I know he's a running back, but I can see the Bills thinking they're set possibly. And then the team like the Packers are going to have to start winning for him to go there, and they usually never end up with the receiver that they're rumored to end up with anyways. And then I thought about the Vikings too. Kevin O'Connell's there. They were apparently in on receivers at the deadline, guys like Brandon Cooks. I really thought about the Vikings. That made some sense. Thielen keeps getting beat up. He still plays, but he ends up getting, limping off at one point. A high-powered passing attack. They want to throw the ball a lot. Beckham Jr. fits O'Connell's system. So I thought about them. They're dead last in cap space. So I think Odell's going to want a little bit of money here. So I look at the Cowboys, who were actually close to trading for Brandon Cooks at the deadline. They were actually talking through the deadline. It almost, in a way, the way they put it almost sounded like they almost just ran out of time, But there was a lot of tough things that needed to happen with that, what the Texans wanted, with the cap space as well. But the Cowboys have some space. They had space to be able to possibly pull off that Brandon Cooks signing so they can give Odell a decent amount of money. It's very clear they want a receiver. It's very clear they're appealing landing spot because of the Cowboys, because they're very good right now. They feel better this year, which is odd because they actually lost more than they gained this offseason, but they feel better this year than they were last year. Defense might be the best in football. Very appealing spot for Odell Beckham Jr., a team that will be interested in him, even though we haven't heard that team name a lot with him. They need a receiver. They have the space, all those things. They check all the boxes more than the other teams do. So that's where I came up with the Cowboys, even though really no one's talking about it right now. And then that was my last bold prediction. I had 5 there. And now we go on to some of our followers on Twitter. I kind of asked people for a bold prediction for the second half of the season. I kind of picked out some here. So Ryan Pollock says the Packers are like last year's Chiefs, and they go on a hot streak stealing the division back. This is a very good one here because, the first part, like last year's Chiefs, if we remember, the Chiefs were really struggling kind of this point. I think they started getting going by now, but they were really struggling early, and it was weird. And I don't know if anybody was panicking that much, though, but then they really figured it out, and they ended up being dominant. They end up no problem, like easy, for the Chiefs. So there's bound to be a team that really turns around like that this year. They don't have to be, it finishes as good of a record as the Chiefs did last year. So why not the Packers, led by Aaron Rodgers, an experienced coaching staff, some really good players, better than what they should be right now. So why not them? So I could see it in a way. The Chiefs went crazy at the end of last year, and they finished with one of the best records in football. I don't see that because I don't think the Packers are as good as that Chiefs team. And their schedule's pretty tough. I was looking at their schedule. I kind of have this pulled up as well. But, I have them beating the Lions this week. I think they'll lose to the Cowboys next week. The Titans might be tough because they play really good defense, and the Packers can't stop the run. You got Derrick Henry. Eagles, I almost like them. They could be the first team that beats the Eagles. I almost like them more. Not that I'm saying if I'm picking them or not. I almost like them more in that Eagles game than the Titans game or the Cowboys game, just by matchup. But Bears, who are tougher now, but you think the Packers can win that game. Rams, winnable game, but they also can lose that. Dolphins, either way. Vikings, I think they get the Vikings the next time they play them. And the Lions, again, they got to play the Lions twice. So it doesn't leave room for a lot of wins, but they can definitely get going and win games. But I like the part of stealing the division back because it's funny because I'm a Vikings fan myself, and I got people in my family that are Vikings fans, and we're always talking, and we always say we could just feel it. Like I could see the Packers still just kind of coming out of nowhere because it's the Packers, it's Aaron Rodgers. We're kind of used to it, and maybe stealing that division back. We've kind of been saying that, kind of thinking. I got people that know that I'm a Vikings fan. They talk about like, you guys got the division wrapped up, and I'm like, oh man, I don't know, not so fast. It might look like that, So it's funny that he says that because I honestly could see it. Just speaking, out loud, like just talking about these teams. But then again, you go back to the schedule and kind of look at the specifics. And they definitely could still definitely give them a shot, and they definitely can go on a run. But it's a tough schedule. It's tough to pull off there when they're coming from behind. They're really going to have to get hot because you play the Cowboys. The Lions twice. It's not really free. It might look kind of free right now, actually. But Cowboys, Titans, Eagles, that's 3 in a row right there. You also have the Rams, the Dolphins, the Vikings. That's 3 in a row right there. a week apart of those 3 separate games, and the Bears are in the middle of it in Chicago, and they've been playing a lot better too. So I would think the Packers could win that, but it's a tough road. So it's possible, and the only reason I say it's possible is because it's Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, But it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough, but an interesting one to think about for sure, and it is possible. Eric Bouncel. Eagles go 17-0. So, yeah, I was looking at their schedule, too, and they're the best team in football right now. They're obviously undefeated. They are 7-0. They play the Texans tonight, actually, in a couple hours. I think they'll win that, and they'll beat the Commanders next week at the Colts. Ellinger at quarterback, and they beat the Colts. The Packers could give them their first loss, especially because that could be that time they figure it out. Right now, I'd say the Eagles got to be the favorites. The Titans... That's going to be a really low-scoring game, I think. The Titans play really good defense, and they stop the run. They might be able to contain Jalen Hurts, but can the Titans score enough? That's tough. The Eagles got to be the favorites. At Giants, Giants been playing pretty good. They got to deal with them twice. First time in New York. At Bears. So I'd say to that point, I'd say they're probably, through the Bears game, I'd say they're probably still undefeated in my book. But Packers and Titans and Giants, those 3 in a row, maybe you could say they're bound to lose one of those, right? I think it's possible, but we'll say they're undefeated still. So they have 3 games left. At Cowboys, Saints, and Giants. At Cowboys, what I actually look at, the Saints could be tough down the stretch too. So, the Saints could beat them there. But I really look at the third to last game at Cowboys, and I look at the last game home against the Giants. Why do I look at those 2 games? At Cowboys, first time playing them this year with Dak. The Cowboys got extremely good defense. They were kind of coming back in that Eagles game last time. If they didn't start off so sloppy, maybe they could have pulled it off. But this time with Dak, the Cowboys could win that game. Playing for a lot in that game in Dallas, I can see that. And then the Giants, the last game of the year, if the Eagles are undefeated or 1 loss, which we kind of have them at, either undefeated or 1 loss, they're probably resting up. Maybe not, but they're probably resting up for the playoffs, and the Giants are probably fighting to get in, perhaps, or fighting for a better seed. So they could, I think, but so they could lose that one or you can look earlier and say Packers-Titans at Giants. That's 3 in a row. They're bound to lose one of those games. We'll give them to them that they don't lose any of those games. Between the Cowboys and the Giants, and they're bound to lose one of those games. So there's 2 sections where they're bound to lose a game there. So I don't think they're going to go 17-0, but I do think it's very possible. It's definitely interesting to think about here. But they have been absolutely dominant and fun to watch. And we'll watch them again against the Texans tonight. I don't know if that one's going to be that fun, but for the Eagles fans maybe. But you never know. This year's been extremely weird. Kyle Harsek, we had to get a coaching one in here, not just about the football on the field here, but I guess that's part of it on the field. But all but Ben Johnson, the Lions offense coordinator, is fired off the coaching staff for the Lions after the Thanksgiving game. It's interesting because I think this is probably what should happen. But, now I said that out loud, it's definitely not going to happen. They're not going to fire everybody but Ben Johnson after mid game. I wish it was after the regular season maybe. It's interesting to think about because it's almost like something that what's forget they said that he said the Thanksgiving game. He's not going to fire everybody but one guy mid-season. So let's say it's at the end of the year, everybody but Ben Johnson. That's interesting to think about because Ben Johnson's really the only bright spot of this coaching staff. Young offensive play caller, offensive coordinator. Offenses look explosive through most games for the Lions this year. Really is taking that next step. And they've added receivers. Everything else kind of seems the same, though. So you think Ben Johnson's got to be doing something right. I will say maybe a little bit better. You look at the second half against the Dolphins. That's a little bit on him, too. Why did the offense get completely shut down? Because there was no adjustments. The Dolphins made adjustments. So that's kind of something for a young coach that maybe he can kind of figure out how to adjust, even when he doesn't look like he needed to adjust. I think that's a very difficult thing because you don't want to go away from what's working at the same time, but you also want to be unpredictable and kind of shake things up to kind of continue to build a lead. So it is tricky, especially for a young coach. So we're not going to take too much shots at him for that. But he's been a bright spot, so it's kind of what they should do. Their defense has been so bad that Aaron Glenn might have to go. I was saying last year that Dan Campbell's not really going to make it. I don't think he is a likable guy. He's a really good motivator. The players probably like him, but I don't think he's a good game manager type coach. So I think he's got to be gone. So the problem is you don't want to lose Ben Johnson because you still want that same type of offense. So do you hire him as your head coach? But it's tough because he's so young. He's still kind of learning. We talked about that. Do you think he's ready for the head coaching job? So it's very interesting to think about. But I do think at the end of the year we could see Dan Campbell and Aaron Glenn fired. I also could see them keeping Dan Campbell just because they like him so much maybe, but which I think that would be a mistake because I think they've drafted some really, really good players. And, yeah, it takes time to develop. But there's other teams that are rapidly developing guys and rapidly turning things around and shocking the world, and the Lions just aren't doing that. So, yeah, interesting to think about what they'll do at the end of this season or maybe midseason. Maybe they fire Dan Campbell midseason. They're not going to fire everybody, but I don't think they do, but maybe. Next, Scott Bryant. This was a very interesting one as well. The Cardinals reverse sweep their schedule. What does that mean? Actually, I didn't really think of that. Does that mean they win out? I don't know if that's what that means. But we're going to forget that. They're not going to win out. But they flipped the script on their past seasons by, this is the part I really like, they flipped the script on their past seasons by going on a winning streak all the way to the playoffs. So, yeah, the last couple of years, the Cardinals start off super strong. And last year, they were the best team in football. They were the Eagles right now. I don't know. They didn't go undefeated for that long, but not too far off. I'm trying to remember. Yeah. But they were just the best team in football. They were number one in my power rankings for weeks. And then they really just They really fell apart there, and they got figured out, and teams were able to game plan for them. They were making more mistakes. They just weren't as good of a football team, and they looked like they were nowhere near a playoff team when they were in the playoffs. They were basically in the playoffs because of how they started, not what they were at that time. So it was a little bit of a disaster. But, yeah, and I was kind of thinking they started off so sloppy this year, not so hot. Like you're thinking two scenarios. Scenario one, yeah, and then they kind of just got figured out at the end of last season, and now they're kind of figured out for good. At the end of last season is what we're getting. That's scenario one, which I think most people believe. Scenario number two is maybe they're not showing everything they got because they know the later part of the year is the most important, time of the year, and they want to, you want to be unpredictable. You want to throw teams off heading into the end of the season to make the playoffs and in the playoffs. So what if they kind of just saving a little bit of things here, which I actually do. I do think teams do that. Am I saying that right? I think teams do that, actually. But I don't think the Cardinals are doing that right now because they're struggling to win a game. So they have to be getting a little frustrated. I mean, I shouldn't say a game, but to win multiple games consistently. So at a certain point, you kind of just would go all out. But, again, I think teams do that, where maybe you save a little bit for the playoffs. I've seen the Chiefs do it a bit. The Rams last year as well. But yeah, maybe the Cardinals, maybe they don't have to be saving things. Maybe they just kind of kick it into the gear and it's just a coincidence. They kind of flip the script and they kind of, get going second half of the year. It's interesting to think about because they always start off good. They didn't start off good this year. So it's like, maybe it's the opposite, but, and I definitely can see them sneaking into the playoffs because they're talented. And they do have, looking at the rest of their schedule, Seahawks is a winnable game this week. Rams always winnable. Niners they probably lose to. Chargers winnable. Patriots winnable. Broncos winnable. Buccaneers winnable. Falcons. I like that schedule for them. So how many wins they got right now? They're 3-5. If I had to predict, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in that range. So I can see it. I do think teams kind of got them figured out right now. I think it's more likely, what we saw last year from them. That's kind of who at the end of last year. That's kind of who they are right now. But could definitely see them figuring out. They're still getting going with DeAndre Hopkins. He had a big game last week, and they're just getting going. They're just getting started. Dirty Dan Snyder sells before season ends. I pray on it. That's from Sell the Team. Dirty Dan, Commander's Cult there. Yeah, it's an interesting one. So this is another one that has nothing to do with on the football action there. But, there was that news yesterday that came out that he is hiring somebody to help sell the team. People were saying it could be just shares that he could be selling, which I could see that too. Yeah, because he was so stubborn, firm on, like, I'm not going to sell the team. I almost felt like he's that type of guy, which I'm not really saying there's anything wrong with it, but where if you kind of get on him or keep people kind of rip him, trying to make him sell the team, he's going to want to do it less. That's kind of the feeling I got from Dirty Dan Snyder. So that's why all of a sudden he's going to sell. I almost think he's going to sell shares of the team, or I don't really know exactly how that works. I'm more just a football guy, but I can kind of just see that. Just kind of just my take on. I don't know the guy obviously. Just my take on what I felt about like what kind of guy he is. And before the season ends, I don't think so. I don't think it happens. But maybe. I'm not the expert in that field. But it's interesting to think about for sure because some of that news is coming out if he sells the team. I think a big reason Commanders fan maybe you don't like him, you don't like what he's done, how the team's been, what they've been doing, how they run things. So maybe that too. But I almost think in the back of my mind, like the NFL probably doesn't want Snyder there. So maybe officials, people around the league don't like him. So maybe they're not doing him any favors. Maybe there's probably people within the league, like I said, maybe officials that don't like the Commanders because of that, situation. So maybe they're not. Probably not, but maybe they're not going to be done any favors if you get what I'm saying with that. But more likable team perhaps if he's gone by the league wide. So that could be good. Next from Wyatt, Broncos have a very strong end of the season and end up sneaking into the playoffs as a wild card. I like this one too. And just reading this and thinking about it, like Broncos, like they were supposed to be good. I predicted them to make the playoffs, like 6 or 7 seed. Russell Wilson's supposed to be better than he is. This team's supposed to be better. These receivers are supposed to be better. The defense is pretty damn good, actually, but it's good enough to be in the playoffs. So it all makes sense. Could they figure it out? All of a sudden, could something click? Russell Wilson plays a little bit more like, I don't expect him to go fully back to Russ, but it plays a little bit more like that, plays a lot better. It's like when you say it like that, it's like, yeah, it's, even if you don't predict, if you're not predicting, it's like, it's kind of realistic. Like, oh yeah, I could see that, so I'd say, yeah, like this is possible. The back part of the AFC is a little tough right now. There's some teams that might get in with like 8 or 9 wins because they're inconsistent. But then you look at the schedule and you got Titans next, which the Titans defense is ridiculous. They're going to give them some problems. The Broncos offense, like they've already had problems. It's probably going to be a really low scoring game. Raiders, which is winnable. I already lost to them though. At Panthers, very winnable. At Ravens, don't love their chances in that one. Chiefs, don't love their chances. At Cardinals, winnable. Could go either way though. At Rams, end of the season, you probably like the Rams in that one at that point of the year. At Chiefs, tough. Chargers, somewhat winnable. But even all the winnable games are like 50-50. Like they could very well lose those too. So I don't like their chances to win a lot of those, which they need. So that's the tough part. When you think about it, like just generally speaking, like, yeah, maybe they figure something out offensively and then we know they have the defense and they get going. But then you look at the schedule, it's like, God, it's going to be tough. And they have injuries too. So it's a tough one. Definitely a tough one. Next, Hunter Newport, both Rams and Colts go on big win streaks and win their divisions. Rams, I think very possible. I'm going to pick the Niners to win, but the Seahawks look pretty good. Cardinals aren't a bad team. The Seahawks are winning right now, and I'm very impressed. They're very good. I'd say the 49ers probably win if I had to predict. That's the thing, though. Like I could see the Rams winning that division because of the Rams. They're very talented. They can figure it out, get crunch time here. They're good enough to win it. But then you got to deal with the 49ers and the Seahawks, so maybe not. But I could see it. Colts, only team standing in the way is the Titans. Like the Rams have the multiple teams standing in the way, and I could see it. The Colts, I don't really see it because even with one team standing in their way, they lost to the Titans twice. I got Sam Ehlinger at quarterback. They're just not playing good football. Like they outplayed the Commanders last week. If you watch that game, they outplayed the Commanders for by far majority of that game, and they lost still. They blew the game still. So how could we trust them to not only go out there and win games, but win a division? The Titans are standing in their way right now. I just do not see the Colts winning that division. So Rams, I actually could see. The Colts, I don't. And then last one from Nolan Mangiamelli. The Falcons finish with a winning record and win the NFC South. They win a playoff game as well. Kind of talked about this with my bold prediction with the Saints. My bold prediction was the Saints win the division. But I said the Bucs have the talent to do it, but the Falcons have the lead right now. They're playing good football, and I like their schedule as well. I think there's a lot of winnable games for them out there. They're a sneaky team. So I definitely can see it. Like I want to pick the Bucs got a tough schedule, and they're playing bad football. So I almost don't want to pick the Bucs. It's crazy. It's Tom Brady. Shame on me for Tom Brady. I've never done that really. But I just too many reasons not. I look at the Saints and the Falcons. I like the Saints' talent more, and they should be getting guys back besides Michael Thomas going forward. And I like their schedule as well for the most part. It's tough, but I kind of like it for them. So that's kind of why I went to Saints. But the Falcons, again, they're playing good. They're leading division right now, and I kind of like their schedule, so they can win for that reason. They're going to be close to doing it. We thought the Falcons, I didn't have them at the very, very bottom of the NFL. I think a lot of people had them finishing 32 or 31, best team. But I had them close to there, not too far off. But I did say they could be sneaky, and that's what they are right now. And they can be sneaky and win this division even when no one's really expecting them to. So I think it's most certainly possible. I actually want to see their schedule. I thought I memorized it, so I didn't have it pulled up. But Chargers this week, which the Chargers are really beat up, and the Falcons getting Cordero. Yeah, Cordero Patterson's coming back, too. They're a much better team with Patterson. They've kind of been winning without him. Chargers, Panthers, they probably should have lost to the Panthers last time. I'd like to think they beat them, a little more comfortably the next time, though. Chargers, Panthers, Bears, Commanders, Steelers. Look at that schedule. Maybe the Falcons do win that division. Chargers, Panthers, Bears. That's 3, 4, 5. That's 5 games. They can win all 5 of those games. They can win all 5 of those. I'm going to say they probably don't win all 5. They probably slip up at least once. But, all right, so it's possible they win 3. 3 or 4. I don't think less than 3. Let's say it's 3. That's 7. Saints, winnable game. I'll take the Saints, though. It finishes kind of tough. Ravens, it's tough. Cardinals, Bucks, they can win those or one of them. I think we're looking at 8, 9, 10 wins, though, for the Falcons based on the way I just explained it. 8, 9, or 10 wins. And the Saints, I'm going to rethink my bold prediction with the Saints. No, I like the Saints, I think. Saints right now have 3 wins. I have them beating the Ravens this week, so that's a big one. That's 4. I think they beat the Steelers. 5. Rams probably get them. 49ers. Bucks, and they beat the Bucks. That's 6. Home against the Falcons. That's 7. Browns, Eagles, Panthers. That's pretty tough, actually. I think they're around that same thing. They could beat the Browns. That could be an interesting matchup for them. The Panthers, they'll win. So, looking at those games, yeah, I think the Falcons, the Saints, that's going to be a battle. And the Bucks, too. That's going to be a battle. I think all of them we're looking at that 8, 9, 10 range. One of them is probably, I don't know if anybody ties. Probably could have a tie. We definitely could. But I bet you one team finishes with 8, one finishes with 9. I don't think anybody finishes with 10, actually. I think 2 of those teams finish with 8. One finishes with 9. And the Falcons could be that team. I'm starting to second guess myself here, starting to question myself. They could be the Falcons, could be the Saints. I think the Saints have more talent than the Falcons, though. That game, the Saints-Ravens game this week's going to be big because I have the Saints winning that game, so they kind of got to win if my prediction's going to I'm going to feel a little bit better feel good about my prediction here. But the Falcons-Saints game, that's a little more towards later in the year. It's going to be massive, absolutely massive there. And when the Saints play the Bucks as well, and then the Falcons, Bucks perhaps. But yeah, so looking forward to the second half of the season. Let's see if any of these come true here. Thanks for playing along. A lot of you commented on our post there, like right away, a bunch of you. So I kind of skimmed through them. So apologize if I didn't use yours. But we're always interacting with you guys on Twitter, so check it out there. Link pinned in the comment section for that. Many other things. Like, subscribe to notifications on. You guys know the drill. A lot going on here. That's going to do it, though. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.